everyone! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show, and welcome back to our parlor. It's April, so it's time for the next installment in our 2018 calendar blanket, a Victorian stitch sampler. And this month, we are going to learn a stitch called Falling Leaves. This very easy stitch makes a very dense fabric with an excellent texture, making it perfect for things like blankets or pillow covers, scarves, sweaters, projects of that nature. You can work this stitch, Falling Leaves, on its own over a foundation chain row that's any multiple of 3 plus 2 extra chains on the end. But since we're adding it to our existing calendar blanket today, you want to make sure you're using the same weight and fiber yarn that you're using for the rest of your blanket, and the same hook too. If you'd like a written copy of this month's stitch guide for Falling Leaves, you'll find it for sale in our Etsy shop, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. So without further ado, let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up Falling Leaves together. In order to add the Falling Leaves stitch to our 2018 calendar blanket, you need your blanket. You need more of the same size and weighted yarn that you've been using for the rest of your blanket. So a little bit for your divider row and roughly 100 grams of color for your new stitch pattern. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and we're using the same hook. It's a 5.5 millimeter or an I9. And once you've got that together, we can get started. We will be adding our little divider row, this row, first. And I want to point out a couple things to keep in mind. So if you lay your blanket down flat, the last stitch you're looking at is the lady's fan, or a lady's fan stitch. Each of your fans has 4 spaces in it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The spaces in between, so where the fans come together, there's a space here. That is just the space between fans. So ignore those spaces. You're only going to concentrate on the 4 spaces that span the outside of each fan stitch. So that's very important, and it'll help keep you on track while we're adding our divider row. So grab your divider color. For me, I'm using white for my divider rows throughout. We're going to make a little slip knot and put it on our hook. And we're going to begin in the far edge, so where this stitch is over here. It's a little sort of the top of that post that begins just before we get into our first fan. So we're going to join our yarn in the very first stitch of that row with a slip stitch. Chain 3. That chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and into the first space of the first fan you're only going to work 2 double crochets. Now because we don't want to interfere with the really pretty scalloped edge of our fan stitch pattern, we're going to vary up the shape of our divider row just a little bit. So that's chain 3 to begin, 2 double crochet into the first space of the first fan. Into the next 2 spaces you're going to work 3 half double crochets. So 3 half double crochets in each of the next 2 spaces. When you get to the last space in your first fan, you're going to work 3 regular double crochets. So 3 double crochet. So that's what you should have so far. A chain 3 to begin, 2 double crochets into the first space, 3 half double crochets into each of the next 2 spaces, and 3 regular double crochets into the last space of your first fan. You're going to skip over the space between fans, remember we're not using that, and you're going to address your next fan. For each fan all the way across, excluding the last one where we're going to change it up a little bit again, every fan is going to have 3 double crochets in the first and last spaces and 3 half double crochets in each of the middle spaces. So 3 double crochet, 3 half double crochet, 3 half double crochet, 3 double crochet. Skip that space between fans, 3 double crochet, 3 half double crochet, 3 half double crochet, 3 double crochet. And that's all you need to work all the way across. you should have something that looks like this all the way across. It is mostly flat. You might still have a little bit of curving because of the shapes of our fans, but for the most part it's flattening out. Once you get all the way across to your last fan, you're going to work 3 double crochet in the first space, 3 half double crochet in each of the next 2 spaces, and into the last space of the fan, you're going to work 2 double crochets, and then 1 double crochet into the top of the turning chains from the previous row. So you want to find those 3 turning chains and double crochet right into the very top of it. There you go. And if you count them up, you should have 120 stitches, including all of your double crochets, your half double crochets, and the chain 3 all the way back at the beginning of our row where we joined with a slip stitch. So count them up, you should have 120 stitches. Now you can fasten off. And you can grab your yarn needle and weave in that little tail. You can weave your little tail back and forth across the back of some of those stitches from your divider row, or you can just work over top of it, and it's entirely up to you. But you do want to switch your blanket, so turn your blanket. We're going to start working all the way back across the top of our divider row. Grab your new color. We're going to make a slip knot. And we're going to join with a slip stitch in the last stitch of that previous row. Chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch that you joined your yarn in. And here we go. We're going to skip 2 stitches, find the next stitch, and work a single crochet and 2 double crochets into that stitch. So single crochet, double crochet, double crochet, all into the same stitch. Skip 2 stitches, find the next one, and work single crochet, double crochet, double crochet, all into the same stitch. Skip 2 stitches, find the third one, and work single crochet and 2 double crochets all into the same stitch. And that is it. I told you this one was easy. You're just going to skip 2 stitches and work a single crochet and 2 double crochets into the third stitch all the way across. And I'll catch up with you near the end. When you get across to the end of the row, work your last little leaf of single crochet and 2 double crochet worked into the same stitch, skip 2 stitches, repeat a little leaf, 1 single crochet and 2 double crochets worked into the same stitch, and that will leave you with 1 stitch and the chain 3. You're just going to hop over to the top of the chain 3 and single crochet into it. You should have 119 stitches or 39 little leaves, and the little leaves are these little single crochet, 2 double crochets worked into the same stitch. These little bloop, 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 all the way across. 39 of those. Chain 1, turn your work. We're into row 2 now, and you're going to love this. Row 2 is basically just row 1. We're going to start with a single crochet in this first stitch, which is the single crochet that we ended the last row on. You're going to skip 2 stitches, or if you need to eyeball it, you're skipping over top of the 2 double crochets. You find the third stitch, which is always a single crochet, and you work single crochet, 2 double crochets into that same stitch. So there's your first leaf made. Skip 2 stitches, which just happen to be double crochets from the previous row. Find the third stitch, which is the single crochet, and work single crochet, 2 double crochet into that stitch. And that's it! Goodness gracious, so simple. Off you go. You're going to work these little leaves all the way across. Every single one of them gets worked into the third stitch, or which will be the single crochet from the previous row, all the way across, and I'll catch up with you at the end. As you're nearing the end of the row, you're going to work your last full leaf by skipping 2, finding the 3rd stitch, which will be a single crochet, and working single crochet, 2 double crochet into the same stitch, and that will leave you with 1 stitch left. It'll be a single crochet. You're just going to single crochet into it. You will still have 119 stitches at the end of every row, or 39 little leaves with a single crochet on either end of each row. And that is all you need to do for this pattern. You're going to work 7 more rows of this stitch. So we've worked rows 1 and 2. You're going to work up to row 9. Every row ends with a chain 1 turn. Every row begins with a single crochet in the 1st stitch, and then you just skip over to the 3rd stitch, which will always be a single crochet from the row before, and work single crochet, 2 double crochet into it. Skip 2, single crochet, 2 double crochet. Skip 2, single crochet, 2 double crochet, all the way across. And when you get to the end of the row, work your last leaf, and then a single crochet into the last stitch, which will always be a single crochet from the previous row. And that's it. You can work 7 more rows of this on your own, and I'll catch up with you near the end. This is what 9 rows of the falling leaves stitch looks like. And this is how you would count it. So you can tell that this is where your first row starts down here. And then you kind of go on a little diagonal. So the leaves all sort of lean to one way and then the other, depending on what row you're on. So there's row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8, and row 9 up top. So a little back and forth because the leaves stick out on either side. So that's 9 rows. Once you're finished, you can fasten off. So snip your yarn, and take a minute to weave in your ends across the backs of some of those stitches. 9 rows of the falling leaves stitch will measure approximately 10 centimeters or 4 inches. You're likely just a little under that. So if you're a little underneath the 10 centimeter mark, don't worry. Like I said, every single one of these stripes is going to vary a little bit in their width, just because that's the nature of the stitch. And that is falling leaves. Pretty simple, right? I hope you enjoyed working this month's stitch along with me, and we will see you soon on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an excellent week, everyone. Bye!